After 10 years of growing plants, I can tell you that watering is the single habit that makes or breaks your garden's health. I've killed more plants with my hose than I'd like to admit, and I've learned these lessons the hard way. Today, we're covering the 7 biggest watering mistakes that are probably stressing your plants right now. Mistake 7. Ignoring drainage and mulch. Here's something most gardeners don't realize until it's too late. I used to think those decorative pots without drainage holes were perfectly fine, as long as I was careful with watering. Turns out, I was creating tiny swamps for my plant roots, and root rot doesn't care how pretty your container is. Every single pot needs a way for excess water to escape, and no, a layer of rocks at the bottom doesn't count as proper drainage. Standing water is a death sentence for most plants because roots need oxygen just as much as they need water. When soil stays constantly soggy, beneficial microorganisms die off and harmful pathogens move in. Your plant basically drowns from the inside out. If you're using decorative containers, either drill drainage holes or use them as cache pots with a proper nursery container inside. Now let's talk about bare soil. I learned this one summer when half my garden beds dried out twice as fast as the other half. The difference? Mulch coverage. Bare soil exposed to sun and wind loses moisture incredibly quickly through evaporation. You're basically watering the air instead of your plants. A good layer of mulch acts like a blanket for your soil. It keeps moisture in, regulates temperature, and even suppresses weeds as a bonus. I use wood chips for my in-ground beds and compost for containers. You can use straw, shredded leaves, or even grass clippings. Just put down 2 to 3 inches around your plants, keeping it an inch away from stems to prevent rot. Since I started mulching consistently, I've cut my watering frequency almost in half. Mistake 6. Not using proper tools. Let me paint you a picture of my early gardening days. I'd fill up a watering can at the side of my house, walk it out to the garden, water a few plants, walk back, refill, and repeat this about 15 times. It was exhausting, time-consuming, and honestly made me dread watering. Wrong tools make even simple tasks feel like punishment. The moment I invested in a quality hose with a retractable reel, everything changed. Being able to reach every bed without dragging heavy equipment around saves me probably 30 minutes every watering session. But here's what really matters: the nozzle attachment. A good adjustable nozzle lets you control water pressure and pattern, so you can give delicate seedlings a gentle shower or blast away debris when needed. For beds where I'm growing disease-prone plants like tomatoes and cucumbers, I've switched to drip irrigation and soaker hoses. These deliver water directly to the soil surface or even below it, keeping foliage completely dry. Setting them up takes an afternoon, but then you just turn on the tap and walk away. No more standing there with a hose for 20 minutes. My favourite tool, though, is a watering wand with a long handle. These things are game changers if you're tall or have deep beds. You can reach right to the base of plants without bending over or accidentally soaking the leaves. Some even have shut-off valves at the handle, so you're not wasting water between plants. The right tools don't just make watering easier, they make you actually want to do it properly. Mistake 5. Treating all plants the same. I'll never forget the day I set up my first automated irrigation system. Same schedule, same amount of water, every plant in my garden getting treated exactly alike. Within 2 weeks, my succulents were rotting while my hydrangeas were wilting. Turns out plants didn't get the memo about my efficient watering system. Different plants have wildly different water needs, and pretending otherwise is setting yourself up for failure. That snake plant thriving on neglect. It needs water maybe once every 2 weeks. The fern sitting next to it probably wants moisture every few days. Throwing them on the same schedule is like feeding a house cat and a lion the same portion size. Containers throw another wrench into the equation. They dry out way faster than in-ground beds because they have less soil volume and more exposure to drying winds. I've got pots that need daily watering in summer while my raised beds are fine for 3 or 4 days. Even within containers, size matters. A tomato plant in a 3-gallon pot might need water twice daily during peak season, while herbs in a large planter barely need it once a day. The solution is grouping plants by their water requirements. I keep all my Mediterranean herbs together in one area, tropical plants in another, and vegetables in beds where I can customize care. When I'm planning new garden spaces, I actually sketch out water zones before I even pick what to plant. Reading those little care tags that come with plants isn't just suggested homework, it's actually useful information. Know what each plant wants, then put similar drinkers together. Drop a comment and tell me which of these mistakes you've been making, because I guarantee I've done all of them. Mistake 4. Shallow watering. You know what drives me crazy? Watching someone spend 10 minutes sprinkling their garden with barely enough water to darken the soil surface. I used to do this exact thing, thinking I was being diligent by watering every single day. My moisture meter revealed the embarrassing truth. Bone-dry soil just 3 inches down while the surface looked perfectly moist. Shallow watering creates shallow roots, and shallow roots create weak plants. When you only wet the top inch or two of soil, your plants never develop the deep root systems they need to actually thrive. Those roots stay close to the surface, making plants vulnerable to heat stress, wind damage, and drought. It's like building a skyscraper on a foundation meant for a shed. Here's how to know if you're watering deeply enough. Stick your finger or a trowel into the soil about 6 inches down. Is it moist? If you're hitting dry soil at that depth, you're not watering enough. Most annual plants need moisture to penetrate at least 12 inches deep, which is also how deep your raised beds should ideally be filled with good soil. Deep watering might seem like it takes more time up front, but here's the beautiful part: you actually water less frequently. When roots grow deep and strong, they can access moisture reserves that surface roots never reach. Instead of shallow watering every day, I now deep water my beds once or twice a week depending on weather. I let the hose run slowly at the base of each plant until I see water starting to pool slightly, then move on. That water has time to soak down instead of running off. Mistake 3. Watering at the wrong time. Picture this. It's noon, blazing hot, and your plants are looking a little droopy. Your instinct screams to grab the hose and give them relief right now. I've been there, and I've learned that timing matters more than you'd think when it comes to watering. Midday watering is basically throwing money into the wind. When you water during the hottest part of the day, a huge chunk of that water evaporates before it even reaches the roots. On a windy afternoon, you might lose half your water to the air. Your plants get a fraction of what you're applying, and you're left wondering why they still look thirsty an hour later. There's this old myth about water droplets acting like magnifying glasses and burning leaves. That's not really the issue. The real problem is that wet foliage in hot sun creates perfect conditions for fungal diseases to take hold. Add in the fact that evening watering leaves plants damp overnight, and you're rolling out the welcome mat for powdery mildew and leaf spot. Early morning is hands down the best time to water. Temperatures are cooler, so less evaporation happens, and plants have the whole day to dry off while using that water efficiently. They're hydrated before the afternoon heat hits, which means less stress overall. I try to finish all my watering by 9 or 10 in the morning. If morning isn't possible, early evening works as a backup. Just water at the base of plants rather than overhead, and do it early enough that foliage can dry before nightfall. When plants desperately need water though, any time is better than letting them suffer. Mistake 2. Watering the wrong part. I used to love the look of water cascading over my entire garden, leaves glistening, everything looking fresh and clean. Felt like I was creating some kind of tropical rain experience for my plants. Then I lost 3 tomato plants to early blight, and finally understood why overhead watering gets such a bad reputation. Here's the thing about leaves: they don't actually absorb water for the plant's hydration. That job belongs entirely to the roots. When you spray water all over the foliage, you're essentially wasting that moisture while creating problems. Wet leaves are an invitation for diseases like bacterial spot, septoria leaf spot, and various mildews to move in and set up shop. Some plants are particularly vulnerable to this. Tomatoes, cucumbers, squash, and melons absolutely hate having wet foliage. The longer those leaves stay moist, the higher your chances of dealing with fungal nightmares later. I learned to approach these plants low and slow, keeping my hose or watering wand aimed directly at the soil surface around the stem. That said, I'm not fanatical about this anymore. For my lettuce, kale, and spring crops that aren't prone to disease issues, a quick overhead watering doesn't cause problems. Sometimes when I'm in a hurry with containers that have no irrigation, I'll water from above and not lose sleep over it. The key is doing it early in the morning so everything dries quickly. The safest approach is always targeting the base where water is actually needed. Get down low, Aim for the root zone and let gravity do the work of pulling that moisture down to where it matters most. Mistake 1. Overwatering your plants. Here's the mistake that's killed more of my plants than all the others combined. I used to think that if a little water was good, more water would be better. I'd come out every single day, drench my containers until water poured out the bottom, and feel like I was being the most attentive plant parent ever. Meanwhile, my plants were slowly drowning. Overwatering is sneaky because the symptoms look almost identical to underwatering. Yellowing leaves, wilting, stunted growth. It all looks the same on the surface. The difference is what's happening underground. When soil stays constantly saturated, it pushes out all the oxygen that roots desperately need to function. Your roots literally suffocate, then they start to rot, and by the time you notice something's wrong, the damage is often irreversible. I learned to use the finger test, and it's saved countless plants since. Push your finger into the soil about 2 to 3 inches deep. If it feels moist, don't water. If it's dry at that depth, then it's time to water. For containers, you can also lift them to feel the weight. A properly watered pot feels heavy, while a pot that needs water feels surprisingly light once you get used to the difference. Most plants actually prefer a wet-dry cycle rather than constant moisture. You water deeply, let the plant absorb that moisture over several days, allow the soil to dry out somewhat, then water again. This cycle encourages strong root growth and prevents the conditions that lead to rot. Depending on your climate and plants, this might mean watering once a week, twice a week, or every few days. The schedule matters less than learning to read what your plants actually need. Watering really is both an art and a science, and the best teacher is just paying attention to your plants. They'll tell you what they need if you take the time to observe them. Now go check your soil moisture and see which of these mistakes you've been making. If you love this video, you'll love the next one even more.
If you found value in this video, you're going to love this next one.